Hey guys, this is RuRoniK95 here. Today's manga review, we're going to be reviewing a manga that is something that I haven't thought of doing one before. For today's manga review is Urusei Yatsura. Yeah, that's the one. So let's review this manga. This is an instant classic from Rumiko Takahashi. So let's do this. The story takes place of how it sets around Tomobiki High, and it tells the story of how it's a teenage lecherous, perverted loser boy named Ataru Moroboshi, who's always has the unluckiest life what he has. Besides that, he just goes girl hunting until he just met a mysterious Buddhist monk named Cherry, or Sakurambu as well, where you translate it, wherever you want to pronounce the name as well. About how how something bad luck is coming towards Ataru Moroboshi's life as well, like of how something evil is coming toward him. But everyone in the residents of Tomobiki realize of Ataru's opponent is coming in the game of tag as well. Ataru's parents, along with his childhood girlfriend named Shinobu Miyaki, realized that the arrival of the opponent is coming as to expect as well. When Ataru met Lum's father, named Mr. Invader, about how his opponent shall be arriving in any minute, this was until the arrival of the appearance is Lum arrived as well. And then this causes how to the whole game of tag thing is going on, especially to have whoever touches the horns of how you could save the earth from, being invaded as well. Yeah, because that's the thing of how it's gotten to Ataru, what he had a lot to do with as well. And then for some reason is that when Ataru Moroboshi tries to grab Lum's body in the game of tag, the game of tag one as well, but she ends up flying high with her, despite how she can fly as well, because, and then Ataru Moroboshi loses on the first day, and then this happened again on the second day, of how Shinobu would have promised to have Ataru win as well, which it all has got to him as well. And this time, Ataru Moroboshi, what it all has got to him as for the thing this happened on the second day. Ataru Moroboshi tries to grab Lum's body as well in the game attack, but instead he ends up grabbing Lum's tiger stripe bikini top, especially in the manga version as well, until the night comes. And this time Lum is still there, particularly of how this has gotten to the fact of how this all has been given the facts of how she's been seeing that Ataru was up to something because he still got her tiger stripe bikini top as well. And then that's for some sort of reasonable thing of how he must have gotten a hold of it as well, particularly until the next day comes, on the third day in the game of tag thing, of how this all would have gotten to him as well. But he ends up loses until he's badly injured as well, and to the point out of how this all had got to him, as how he would have almost won as how he would realize about this until the third day comes, of how he could propose to Shinobu as well, of how this gotten to him as well. Instead, Ataru grabs Lum's horns on the final day in the game of tag as well, particularly of how this has gotten to him, as how this has gotten to the point out as how this has wanted to realize that Ataru has won, of how he can propose the marriage since he won. But then this sets Lum off, and then this means she now proposed to Ataru instead. This upsets Shinobu, which all left in the cold as well. But Lum's father congratulates Ataru as in son-in-law, which he refers to Ataru basically, because he realized that that Lum is now proposed to be in love with Ataru as well, particularly in that chapter. As soon as chapter 3 come by, this is basically how a lot more very different of how this time it only focuses on the characters, only Ataru and Shinobu only in the second chapter in the manga as well. And for this, how this, some whatever reason, particularly of how this basically how this evil clown-looking doll thing, whatever, or what this was, as how it's gotten out of control, especially when Cherry has to try to put a stop to this as well, like something evil around happening in the Moroboshi residence as well, especially of how what you see in this chapter as well. Yeah, because this is the only chapter that never featured Lum in that one. Yeah, basically of how what you expect of how they always wanted to have this as well. Yeah, that's only in chapter 2 because Lum never actually appeared accordingly in the third chapter of in the second chapter of the manga, in that one as well. But as in chapter 3, Megane and his friends, basically how they've gotten the hold of the photos of Lum as well, particularly of how they wanted to have Ataru know of how they wanted Lum to appear, but Shinobu doesn't want Ataru provoking to bring Lum, otherwise bad shit will happen coming as well, accordingly, is particularly of how it's got to him. So then they form the circle of how they want the aliens to appear, but instead the UFO appears and got Ataru, Megane, and his friends, basically, of how this happened, basically, in case you're wondering, of how something going on as well. But he doesn't know if Lum is there, particularly. But instead, you have the alien taxi driver has the first appearance arrived as well, particularly in this chapter of the manga as well, including bringing Ataru to the Moroboshi residence as well, basically, of how the appearance goes. Now, this is the one. This chapter is more different than the episode of the anime as well, particularly for the manga of how this has gone. Especially the Raining Oily Town episode 1. At this point of how this would have all has gotten to that Lum is there in the Moroboshi residence, of how she wants to be in love with Ataru, but Ataru doesn't want to, and that is the parts of how Lum got mad, of how she is the only one who can be with Ataru, but no one else as well. But Ataru doesn't like it because he hates it as well in this chapter as well. So this sets Lum off, and she was crying, and Megane and his friends are beating the crap out of Ataru because they thought Ataru made her cry as well. So instead, he just gives up and he starts standing up of how he could take care of the payment in the chapter as well. So instead, Lum starts falling in love with Ataru again as well, and especially in the third chapter as well. And it's raining in Tomobiki in that one. As in the fourth chapter going on, when Ataru, this is the one where like Ataru goes on, sees something of how something suspicious going on when he was in a Japanese restaurant eating some ramen noodles, as well as how he realized that Moroboshi's parents, as well as Shinobu and Lum, appeared on TV, and that sets Ataru off, and then he just runs into this woman that goes by the name Sakura when he just realized of how those antics of how Lum has got to Ataru, basically, especially in the school, particularly, of how this would have all has got to him, as what you see in the chapter as well. And for whatever the reason is that this sort of all has got to him as well, especially in the 4th chapter as well as how this goes on. So this basically would have all has gotten to him accordingly. So he brought her to the shrine place as well, of how, because this would have all has gotten to the point out that Sakura is a shrine maiden, particularly, of how she exorcism on Ataru, basically, of how those bad monster-looking things are all over Ataru, basically, particularly what he, after he was tied up, as well, especially on his arms as well, to the point out of how this all has got to him. And then, so that's how the exorcism basically goes as well. Yeah, and there's monsters all over Ataru, basically, especially what you see in this one, particularly, is how what you expect of how this goes as well, until something on happens by accordingly of how Ataru couldn't realize of how who is there, but it's actually the arrival of Cherry appeared, as well as Ataru has in the bad karma as well. In the 5th chapter, though, Lum wants to be in love with Ataru so they can have a child, especially when Ataru was on the phone with Shinobu, and that sets it, because that's something of how it's got to the own primal thing, as particularly of how it was what it got to him all over town, especially on the phone between forsakenly as well as how this has gotten to the pointers as well. Yeah, in that chapter, basically. Yeah, it's gotten to the point out of the manga's all different, though, as particularly as how you would expect of how, yeah, of how you want to know, of how you can experience this as well. Yeah, that's how the chapter of how the story is about, particularly of how something has gotten to the point now. This is accordingly of you expect. See, yeah, because y'all know what the chapter is, because that manga chapter is a lot more different than the anime. Accordingly, particularly, is one of the most things as more confident thing of how you could find out, especially on that chapter as well, and at once as well. Yeah, because you can see what's going on in that one particularly. Yeah. So that is more different than before as well. In chapter 6 of the Urusei Yatsura manga, this is basically how where Ataru wants Shinobu to come over, basically, but Lum is there, particularly, of how she is always there at the Moroboshi residence as well, particularly. Of how this would have got, and then when Shinobu wants to come back to see what Ataru was up, but instead this is how it appeared the arrival of Lum's ex-boyfriend named Rei arrived, particularly as well, when she brought him over to, because Ataru didn't know that if Shinobu's coming over, that made Lum sets off as well, particularly of how this happened in the manga as well. Yeah, this has gone to how when because yeah, Shinobu brought Lum's ex-boyfriend Rei over to the Moroboshi house, of how she could have realized if he missed Lum as well, especially Rei, but Lum hates her ex-boyfriend Rei in that one because all he cares about is food. But when he gets whenever he sees that Lum is in love with Ataru, he just gets all sets off, and he just turns into a tiger or triceratops looking cow looking monster, of how he transforms, particularly of how this happened as well. When he was eating those yams, especially that were offered from Ataru's mother as well, yeah, this is how it realizes of how this got, and this all wasn't long until he basically has the eating battle between him and Ataru as well. And that's the thing for how this happened in the manga. In chapter 7, however, yeah, Lum's ex-boyfriend Rei is basically always eating at the restaurant, though, is that Ataru, Megane, and his friends knows that he was there, but he was basically always wanted to realize of how he wanted to be back with Lum as well, but instead Lum doesn't want to because she just rejects Ray as well as what you expect of how this happened, especially in the town in Tomobiki as well. Yeah, that's how how this is as well, especially what this happens as well, particularly what you see in that one as well. Yeah, because he just gets all pissy and becomes this monster, tiger, triceratops looking, cow looking monster as well, is what Ray becomes in that one. Especially how, and then he just gets all the hot stuff from the women who they thought the women thought he's in love. The women thought that they would go all crazy over him as well, particularly as well, from what I understand as well. In Chapter 8, however, this basically is the one where it's like a take on like Japanese literature, particularly as how this you see going on, particularly of how this happens as well, especially with the appearance of Lum's childhood friend, who was the biker of the biker named Ben 10 in the manga, especially. Yeah, that's the appearance in this manga as well, particularly. Yeah. From what I understand, basically how this happens, every character's introduced in that one, especially the Rise of the Good Luck, of how it protects as well, of how this happened in the manga. Yeah, this is actually with some take on some romance, comedy, and some it references to Japanese literature as well. This happened. Yeah. In Chapter 9, however, this explains of how when Aru Moroboshi realized of how Lum can cook anything like this, spicy as well, or something like, not sure, or making devices especially, how something appeared from out of nowhere. Especially when they make these kind of devices, including these things that look like helicopters flying around, particularly, or any type of object of how this happens. Yeah, this is how you expect to see what's happening in that as well. And for the reason as well, there's something crazy going on happening as well. This is basically another reference to Japanese literature or histories as well, particularly. Yeah, that's what you expect to see what's happening in that one as well. And for the thing here is that this explains something of how there's a lot of weird things happening in this chapter in the manga as well. Yeah, especially. Yeah, that's the one there. Yep. And for whatever the thing is, that this all happens to the point out as well of how it always has what this chapter is, especially if you ever read the manga as well. So that's my plot of how the story of how it takes, what the Urusei Yatsura manga is about, basically. I mean, I love the art style from Rumiko Takahashi, though. I may like it over the manga, though. Oh no, over the anime. But the anime, you have to be in the mood for. But this, you have to throw in any time when it comes to reviewing the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura manga. And the biggest thing is, like, you want to review something that helps you in the and more experience of how you want to know something, though. Although this manga is in Japanese, though, but I can know something about what's going on in the manga, particularly. Like, if you want to reread it any time as well, particularly of how you want to expect as well. Yeah, the characters, we all know it's introduced in the right way as well. Well, Lum's toddler cousin Ten and Shutaro Mendo appeared later on in the other volumes of the manga, but this you have to explain of how when it comes to discussing about the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura manga, and this is the thing of how it has gotten to a point of how where I can feel of how this gotten to the point as how this could have realized as well. And that's the better way to introduce the characters as well, to start first, especially the first volume of the manga as well. Yeah, because the art style from the manga, I finally found it very unique and very cool, interesting though, because this got me into thinking though this is definitely the best artwork from Rumik's art design, especially for when she created the manga as well. And that's a good way of how they made this as well. And yeah, I know this manga first published was back in 1980 as well, when it was started as like a short story called Those Obnoxious Aliens as well, or something. Yeah, I'm not mistaken as well. To me, it has gotten to the point of how this basically, you could realize basically of how this all would have got to this particularly accordingly. For the manga, like Urusei Yatsura, all has what it's gotten to this as particularly according of how you expect of how. Because this is the thing of how the manga chapters, like chapter 2, Lum never appeared, but it was just Ataru and Shinobu only, which is only in chapter 2, which makes it a lot very different than the anime on there. Although the fans liked the character Lum as well, because there are so many fans who like the character Lum in the manga though, so they put Lum back in chapter 3 of the original manga as how, according to the fact of how they did this particularly. Well, chapter 3, it's basically, in the manga though, it's a lot more different than the anime though, because same goes for the other ones as well. And that's the proper way to introduce the characters on here. Like Rei, Benton, after Sakura particularly, in the right way of how they could do it, especially for the manga, unlike the anime version particularly. Because I'm explaining about the characters, what's happening in the Urusei Yatsura manga particularly, which is a lot more different than any other has gotten before, accordingly, especially for the Urusei Yatsura manga as well, particularly of how it's to the point out of how this has gotten to this. Yeah, this is why it's published or showed in Sunday Comics. I mean, the story, I find it very awesome, and I like it, though. I mean, the characters all introduced in a good, proper way as well, accordingly as well. And that's very the good starter way of how the manga can throw in any time. Well, the anime, you might be in the mood if you want to binge watch as well, particularly. As how there's a lot of things happening, which is going on when it comes to discussing about the first Urusei Yatsura manga volume. And the biggest thing is that you want to review something about something that is a classic, which is what Rumiko Takahashi has a lot to do for accordingly, especially Urusei Yatsura as well. And yeah, I'm basically a lot careful for the things as well. Yeah, because my score for the manga on the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura, a 10 out of 10, basically. That's the good, proper way to review the first volume of the manga as well, because unless if I can buy all these English translated ones of the Urusei Yatsura, then I could do like a full, proper manga review on the entire series as well. Like, you could throw it any time at this point as well, accordingly as well. But yeah, that's how I can explain just something I gotta get back into getting more volumes of the Urusei Yatsura manga, because those could help you throw in any time of how you could experience on whenever you're reading manga in Japanese, and you can recognize the characters happening in the manga as well, accordingly, particularly. yeah, this is published under Shonen Sunday Comics as well. And then this was back until October 14th, 1981. They made this like an anime adaptation of the Urusei Yatsura TV series, which I think this premiered on October 14th, 1981, like around the same time as D'Artagnan and the Three Musket Hounds, Ulysses 31, Miss Machiko, Dr. Slump, God Mars, and Beast King Go Lion were at the same time. Also, Hello Spank, another 80s anime as well. But for Urusei Yatsura, however, for overall, if you're a manga reader and you love the classics, for the Urusei Yatsura manga from Rumiko Takahashi, especially on the first volume, this is basically highly recommended if you ever been a fan of Rumiko Takahashi's works, especially whenever you're doing like a discussion about how I'm talking about the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura manga as well, accordingly as well. So that's going to be for my manga review on the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura for today's manga review for today, guys. Thank you for watching, but before we go, here's what I'm going to say for this video. Well, this is the first time I wanted to do a video where I'm talking about the Urusei Yatsura manga, particularly, because this is something that I haven't thought of doing one until now, because this is going to take the cake whenever I can do a review on the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura manga. Hope you subscribe for content. My anime planet link in the description down below. You can share this video on your Twitter, Facebook. If you have Twitter and Facebook account, all social media, smack the like button if you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below on this video about the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura manga. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Be sure to smack the like button if you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, RuRoniK95. Feel free to join my channel, especially if you're new to my channel as a newcomer. Smack the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified also as well for more latest updates. And keep it otaku for this manga review on the first volume of the Urusei Yatsura manga, because this is the first time I haven't thought of doing one until now. Hey, I have been reviewing this that I haven't thought of doing one until now, that's why. This is RuRoniK95 saying thank you for watching my video. I'm glad you liked it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope to see you soon for the next video. Hope you have a great day. This is RuRoniK95 signing off. Thank you for watching my video, and I will see you soon for more videos. Take care. Bye.